This is the Crowdcrux Crowdfunding Podcast with Sal Briggman, where we cover everything you need to know to launch a successful crowdfunding campaign. We speak with proven entrepreneurs who've raised money from the crowd and want to teach you how to do the same. Stay tuned because we're about to reveal how to launch your dream project with your host, Sal Briggman.
Before we get started with this podcast episode, I want to take a second to introduce you to my friends at Fulfillrite. If you need help shipping out your Kickstarter or Indiegogo perks or rewards, Fulfillrite is the absolute best company for you. I've been working with them for a while and I can vouch for their services. They make it dead simple and take all of the headache out of shipping out all of those boxes, all of those orders to your backers and your customers. If you want to check them out, go to fulfillrite.com at fulfillrite.com. What's up, Crowdfunding Nation? Salvador Briggman here. Welcome back to the Crowdfunding Demystified podcast. Hope you've been enjoying the last few episodes of this show. And if you have, go and take a second to rate and review this podcast on iTunes because it would mean the world to me. Today, we're getting into how you can use crowdfunding when it comes to charitable fundraising. So you're trying to launch a campaign on Indiegogo and you want to donate like a portion of that campaign to charity, or you're looking to do social entrepreneurship where you're not just raising money, but you're also impacting the world to a small degree. We're going to get into all of that today, as well as some of the cool techniques that this campaigner and this entrepreneur used to get people interested in their project and to assemble a crowdfunding street team. A crowdfunding street team that goes out there and raises money on their behalf, that gives them a shout out, that shares their link. How do you get people to share your campaign with their audience? And in that way, you reach new audiences, you get more and more funding, and also you can get Indiegogo itself, the platform, on your side. You're going to discover all of that today. In addition, if you have not yet, I have a great book out there called The Kickstarter Launch Formula, which goes step by step into how to effectively launch a Indiegogo or Kickstarter campaign. It gets nitty gritty into the things like estimating costs going into the project, how do you do marketing, how do you build up an email list, how do you tell your story, what are the best practices for a video, as well as how do you even get to like media attention and greater exposure. This is a incredible end-to-end book. If you are looking for a blueprint, or if you're kind of just looking for a roadmap, honestly, I recommend the Kickstarter Launch Formula. And if you're interested, you can grab a copy on Audible. Audible is a great kind of like audio listening kind of service where you can download a copy of the Kickstarter Launch Formula with this link. And if you want to, you can also get a free 30-day trial of Audible, and you will get a free copy of the Kickstarter Launch Formula. So that link is crowdcrux.com/Kickstarter audio. That is crowdcrux.com/Kickstarter audio. Just put that into your browser. We'll take you right there to the audiobook. The other quick thing I want to mention before we dive into today's episode is if you want to book a one-on-one coaching call with me, I will share the link for you to do that at the end of the episode. And you can learn how you can work one-on-one with me. You can work on your project. We can get your whole roadmap together and ensure you have an explosive launch when you go live with your Kickstarter, Indiegogo, nonprofit, or other type of crowdfunding campaign. Without further ado, let's get into today's podcast episode. Hey guys, welcome back to the Crowdfunding Demystified podcast. Today we are talking with a Indiegogo campaign creator who has raised over $60,000 from more than 1,000 backers for Fursuit Friday's Charity Calendar. I will let him tell you a little bit more about that. Neil, welcome to the show.
Hey there, good to hear from you.
Do you think we could get started? Maybe you could tell listeners a little bit about this project that you created, who it's for, why you decided to do it?
Sure, yeah. So I'm a furry, and I run a company for furries called artworkt.com. And we make T-shirts, and we go around and we sell them all over the world at different furry conventions. And just to give a little bit of a definition for any of your listeners who don't know, basically a furry is somebody who loves anthropomorphic animals. So if you've ever seen something like a mascot at a ball game, it's people who dress up in these really awesome animal costumes, and they go to these huge conventions with, many of them have, thousands and thousands of people. It's awesome. So I was at one of these conventions, and for my website, we have a bunch of different YouTubers that help us out selling T-shirts. And I was just thinking to myself that all of these people take pictures of themselves all the time, for their Instagram or Facebook or whatever. And and I was like, if I just ask them for pictures, I bet we can make a really cool calendar with all of these people in their costumes. And it turns out everybody was super on board. It was an 18-month calendar, and the slots filled up for the pictures in 2 days.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah. People were just so excited to be a part of it, and yeah, that's how I got started with this specific idea.
What was it kind of like with the charitable component, related to the calendar? I was kind of curious about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's the reason why we chose Indiegogo and not Kickstarter, because Kickstarter only allows you to do for-profit campaigns. With Indiegogo, one of the things about furries is that furries are super generous. I mean, it's something I'm trying to remember the exact amount. It was something like over 500,000 was donated last year at the different furry events.
Jeez, that's incredible.
Yeah, all to different charities. A lot of animal health charities, a lot of children's health charities. Just furries are super giving, and they love to help people. And so I was talking with some of the people who were interested in being part of it, and one of them suggested this horse rescue called Last Chance Corral. They're one of the biggest horse rescues in the United States. They rescue, if I remember correctly, over 100 young foals every year who otherwise wouldn't have a home to go to. Mm-hmm. And she it's her favorite charity. She's really passionate about it, and I just called him up and said, "Hey, they've worked with furries before with some of the conventions," and I said, "Hey, we would love to do a fundraiser for you guys," and I was so excited to get to work with them.
It looks like they've been doing that for more than 30 years here. Yeah. It's also something that I think there's probably not enough emphasis on. Victoria, the founder, said we want to put our efforts into something that people don't want to work with, which is newborns. We need to give them at least a chance. So you guys are kind of shedding some light on a charitable cause that doesn't seem to have enough attention on it already.
Yeah, absolutely. Victoria is just amazing. She works like 18 hours a day. I am in awe of her work ethic, and I'm a workaholic. But she basically takes care of the young foals about 8 months out of the year, and then the rest of the year she primarily spends fundraising so that the next time the foaling season comes around, she'll be able to take care of them and take in as many horses as she can. So we were really happy to get to help with that.
So I kind of like this approach that you have. It's kind of like a social entrepreneurship kind of approach, because you guys are obviously you're selling a calendar and you're working hard to create really great artwork for the calendar, but it's also like this charitable component and you're doing good. Was this your first crowdfunding campaign that you've ever done?
Yes, and I learned a lot. I had never done a crowdfunding campaign before, but a lot of people in the furry community do, because furries are primarily an online community. They do have the conventions, but there's estimates are pretty varied, but estimates are somewhere probably around 1 million or so furries around the world that only interact online. And then there's somewhere around 100,000 or so that actually go to the events themselves. So there's a lot of people who, maybe they live in, South Africa, or maybe they live in Japan or somewhere where there's not a lot of furry events, and they can participate by, donating to these types of crowdfunding campaigns. So they're very popular in the community.
So what was your role here with the project? Like, you came up with the idea here. Did you assemble the campaign yourself? Did you have anyone helping you out, et cetera?
Right. So I did most of the background work myself. I had some great help from some of my friends who are photographers and videographers for the actual photos and videos that we made for the page. But making all the different products, coordinating all the different people, getting all the photos from people. Yeah, that was all me.
It's a lot of work, man, and it's really I think anxiety producing because like you're getting ready to launch this thing. You put I'm sure months at least into the project, and then you launch it, and it's like wow, it's actually live,
Right. Yeah, it was about 6 months of preparation. Just even the design work was complicated just because you're talking about designing a book essentially a book that has, 40 full color pages. So, just that alone took a while.
And you're coordinating other people, working with other people to get photos done, etc.
Exactly. Right. That was a big part of it too. One of the things I wanted to mention to your viewers that we did to some great effect was we actually sent out shirts from the campaign. So what we did was we sent out, if I remember correctly, it was somewhere around $500 worth of shirts to different people in the community with social media and YouTube following. So basically, I just put out a Google survey on our social media, and I said, hey, we're going to do this campaign. It's going to start in a month or two, and if you would be interested in helping us promote it, we'll send you a free T-shirt. And so when the campaign actually launched, it was amazing because, you had 10, 15 people all posting, hey, check out this campaign, here's the shirt that you guys can get. And it was a really good way to get the word out without having to spend a ton of money on advertising.
And were you also then getting their email address and kind of announcing it that way, or you just kind of left it up to them in terms of when they decided to post that?
Right. So what we did was we added them all to a group on Telegram, which is a messaging service. And you could do this with Skype or Discord or whichever service that you prefer to use. But what we did was we made a group for all the people who were working together on the project. So we got together. We had everybody who actually had their picture in the calendar, and then we had a bunch of essentially influencers would be the easy term to use, where somebody who has 2, 5, 10,000 Twitter followers, and so we just every time we had an update, like if we had a update on production or if we had some new pictures to send or something, we would post it out on that group, and then a lot of times they would. Not everybody, of course, but 5 or 10 retweets from people like that gets it a lot of traction.
That's super exciting, and I think that's so incredibly important, particularly when you're doing something where there's a charitable component. You have to make people believe this is something that's worthwhile, and that if an influencer also is supporting it, you're more likely to believe this is also a credible charity to begin with, and also that it's going to be a cool project in total.
Yeah, absolutely. And on that note, one of the big things that we did was we actually went out to the charity and we took photos and video there. That was a big part of the campaign. It was probably the most expensive thing that we did in preparation for it, but it was just an amazing experience getting to talk in person with Victoria and her team, and we brought together a bunch of people from all over the country, people from the West Coast, East Coast, all over. And we had, I'm trying to remember, I think we had about 15 people there total that were, just like petting the horses and just taking pictures with the staff and all of that.
That's awesome. That's a really big, I think, team building experience too, because you also have to get your team excited about the project and buy into the vision and want to share it and these different things. Did you notice that anyone who wasn't connected to you via this, the Telegram, did anyone on Indiegogo support it that were random people or any strangers discover it?
Sure. So that was actually something that really surprised us because, most of the time when there's a project on Kickstarter or Indiegogo that's furry related, it doesn't really get a lot of traction in outside media. However, we were actually really surprised. Indiegogo actually featured us in 2 of their collections, in their photography and in their, it was arts collection, I think, or something. And then near the end of the campaign, when we were really ramping up our marketing and all of that, it actually got on the Indiegogo homepage for about 48 hours, which I was just blown away by. It looked, from what I could see on Indiegogo statistics, it looked like somewhere say around 5-10% of the donations were actually people who came, just they went to Indiegogo and they found the campaign there, which I did not expect at all. Expected it to be zero.
Why do you think that Indiegogo decided to do that?
That's a good question. I think one of the reasons was that we had really professional photography and videography, because obviously they want to put their best foot forward in terms of what people see when they visit the website. And I don't know them, but if I were them and I saw a campaign with really professional photography and videography, I would want to feature that so that people say, this is a good website.
Mm-hmm. I think the other thing too, just also having a team around you of people, a tribe already interested. I think it's really shows a lot about just crowdfunding in general. Like you're doing the right stuff. And,
absolutely, yeah.
The platform also, I mean, it's good business for them as well if they're going to feature and talk about you, because then they get more people interested in the project, and I think it's just kind of like a win-win situation there. One of the things I want to talk about was when you're launching a campaign, there's so many different unexpected things that kind of go into that. So you spending a lot of time doing the photos. There are a lot of different hidden costs that come with doing a crowdfunding campaign. Can you speak a little bit to that? What were some of the hidden costs you discovered?
Sure. So one of the things that we figured out was that we needed help. We actually went with a service called BackerKit, which I was a little bit on the fence about it when we started, just because I was like, it's like depending on which package that you get, it's like 2% or 3% of the total that you raise for them to do their service. Mm-hmm. But near the end of the campaign, I looked back at it again and I was like, man, they help with, sending out the tracking numbers and helping us with postage and helping us with all these different things. And, it was going to be, let's see, I think I chose the 2% version. So it was just a little over $1,000 that I had to pay for it. But it ended up, when I did the calculation, that the amount we would save in shipping versus some of the other shipping options, it actually paid for itself.
Nice. So it's kind of helped you doing all the logistical components related to the project.
Yeah, I highly recommend it. It's BACKERKIT.com.
Yeah, and you have over 1,000 customers there, so that would be a lot of survey data, a lot of Excel spreadsheets, getting down to the nitty-gritty for that.
Right. Yeah.
Another question I had for you was when it comes to the things you learned about your community throughout the project. So like you obviously learned a lot about yourself, I'm sure, doing this project, but I'm sure you also learned a little bit about what people were interested in or like how they responded to their campaign. Is there anything you can share on that front?
Sure. So I was actually really pleasantly surprised that there wasn't a lot of negative feedback. I've seen with some other crowdfunding campaigns where people are like, oh well, you're trying to raise a bunch of money, why are you doing that and not this, or whatever. People are negative sometimes, but I was really surprised that it was almost universally positive, and I think it was in large part because we were raising money for a charity. Like everybody was, like as an example, we've gotten a couple of emails from people, if there was like a one of the rewards that we needed to edit for them or something like that, and they're like, I'm not upset because the reason why I donated was not to get the reward, it was to get more money for the charity, Mm-hmm. So it seemed to me that, at least compared with other projects that I've done, that it kind of paved the way a little bit, that it was a charity thing.
Totally. Did you do any kind of like media outreach throughout the campaign aside from building this initial community?
Yes. So we got posted on Newsweek.com, and we got posted on a website called Gay Star News, and that was actually picked up by Google's like news algorithm. Oh, yeah. And so I got a bunch of tweets from people like, "Oh my God, I saw you on the news!" Like, I saw that on the news on my phone. This is crazy, And I mean, it was ridiculous. I mean, we were on the homepage of Newsweek for like 24 hours or something. It was insane.
That's really cool. That's also that's incredible, social proof and credibility, and it gets the word out there even more about what you're trying to do.
Absolutely. Yeah. And for any listeners who are interested in doing something like that, I mean, it was a bit of grindy work, but essentially what I did was I made a press release with some pictures and, links to some of the videos. And I just sent it out to a bunch of different news organizations. And ironically enough, I didn't even send a press release to Newsweek, but I sent it to a couple of other publications. And the writer was a writer for those other publications and picked it up for this other news website. So you never know. You never know when something is actually going to be picked up.
That kind of seems like a theme of today's episode is that you just literally, you don't know until you tried something.
Right. Right.
And even just that is, you have maybe a great idea of how you can incorporate something, a hobby or something you're passionate about with involving some other people, throwing in the charitable component. Like, you don't know how that can happen. And just even trying things out, you can discover things that you never even necessarily thought was going to happen or was possible.
Absolutely. And I mean, one of the really important things that we've learned, over the course of the business and this project in particular is, working with a community, working with the vlog style YouTubers is really effective. So, vlog style YouTubers are always looking for new content. They have to make new content every couple of days. And so for them to have something to make a video about, a lot of them are just really happy about that anyway.
It's entertaining. It's interesting.
Right.
I gotta introduce you to a killer resource, the Gadget Flow. Their website reaches more than 28 million people per month. Brands like DJI, HP, and Pioneer have used them to increase awareness and boost sales, along with more than 4,000 crowdfunding campaigns. They have a new unboxing series on YouTube where you can get your product unboxed by a tech expert. Lastly, you can get feedback for your crowdfunding campaign and increase conversions by using Crowd Insight. You can check them out at thegadgetflow.com.
And then for two, it gives you access to their audience, essentially, where, if somebody has, for example, one of the YouTubers that we worked with, her name is Pakari Roo. She's a kangaroo character, and she dresses up as her character and does little skits and stuff on her YouTube channel. And, we posted, I think it was about 2 weeks after the campaign started. We were about 9,000 in funding. And she essentially just took a bunch of our video and that we had shot at the place, and she edited it into her own video and then put some video of herself at the end. And the response was crazy. I mean, we jumped from 9,000 to 11,000 in, I think, 2 days.
Jeez.
It was, yeah. So, working with people like that I definitely recommend it. Like I said, a lot of people are really interested to make more content. And so rather than spending, $1,000 on Google ads, I would definitely recommend, send out 100 samples to different YouTubers. And if 50 of them make a video, I mean, who knows how many thousands of people that would reach.
Yeah, totally. I think one of the other things when it comes to YouTube, there are a lot of different crowdfunding sites out there. Like you mentioned, Kickstarter, Indiegogo, Patreon is another one. Did you ever consider doing something like a Patreon campaign? Because I know you have this other existing business.
Sure. So Patreon isn't a super good fit for Artwork Tea just because we're primarily doing physical products rather than digital products. However, we have a different website that's also related to the furry fandom called AWOO News, AWOONEWS.com. And for that, we do have a Patreon because it's primarily news articles and image galleries and stuff like that.
Interesting. So did you start this company yourself, the Artwork Tea?
Yes. I've actually been doing conventions since 2012. Oh my God. It was actually a really funny story that I love to tell. So I went to my very first fandom convention in 2012. And I'd been to trade shows and stuff, but not a collection of fans. And it was an amazing experience. If you've never been to one, definitely go, because everybody is so warm and welcoming and excited to be there, and it's so much fun. And at the end of the day, I went up to one of the dealer booths, and I was just talking to her about, hey, I'm really interested in this, and how you do it and all of that. And she's like, yeah, it's crazy. I sold completely out on Saturday. I had to go to Office Depot and get stuff printed overnight just so I'd have stuff for Sunday. I was like, huh, I could do that. And a week and a half later, I was selling at my first convention.
Really? What were you doing at the time? Like, were you working at a job or?
At the time, I was actually working on my YouTube channel, which unfortunately they won't tell me why, but they took it down about a year ago. But at the time, I was
for like so many more YouTube channels I've been seeing, just people getting flagged and stuff, random stuff.
Oh my God, it's crazy. And it wasn't even a copyright thing. It was just like a quote unquote community strike. And it did, like, they wouldn't even tell me why, what specific rule I had broken. It was so annoying.
Yeah, that's BS. So you're basically trying to do the YouTube channel, and then you sort of saw or you spotted this opportunity in 2012, and then you kind of ran with that.
Yeah, it was an interesting experience to go from primarily working at home to flying all over the country to do these events. I highly recommend conventions to anybody, just to go, whether you're going as a attendee or whether you're going as a vendor. Because one of the reasons why I specifically recommend it to creative people, like people who might listen to your podcast, is the people who go to a convention are oftentimes really passionate about creating. So like if you make whatever you make, like if you make, sculptures, or if you make paintings, or if you make whatever, a lot of times what people are not looking for is specifically a product. What they're looking for is a story. So like if you can show them your paintings and say like, yeah, this one was inspired by this and this and this, they'll be like, oh, I love it. Let me buy it, to support you. It's not so much about the product as it is about the experience.
Yeah. And also just connecting with people that are into the same thing you are, and like-minded people kind of creates its own like energy and buzz, I find.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So this is your full-time job doing the artwork tee. And let's see, you have a bunch of different YouTubers you also work with, it seems like. With your company.
Yeah, that's right. The biggest YouTuber that we work with is his YouTube name is Majira Strawberry, and he came on pretty early on in the company. I actually went to a convention, and lauding the benefits of conventions. I actually met his merchandise manager at a convention. And I talked with him about like how I could help him out, and he ended up working with us. So, oftentimes it's that personal connection that really makes a difference.
Yeah, just courting. I call it courting serendipity. Just putting yourself out there and trying things. You never kind of know who you might meet or who you might run into. Did you see yourself as an entrepreneur? Like, was that your goal, I guess, when it came to starting Artwork Tea, or were you just kind of like, this sounds cool, I want to start this?
Yeah, I've really always seen myself as an entrepreneur. My dad is the same way, so I take after him in that way. But what I've noticed is that one of the things that a lot of people struggle with is specifically sales skill. And ironically enough, I have a business degree. And like they didn't teach sales. Not a single class taught sales in my business degree.
That's such BS. Yeah.
I know. It's ridiculous. And so like, and I feel sorry for people who, whether or not they didn't have the ability or the time or whatever, they weren't able to go to college. But like, even if you have a business degree, they might not teach you sales. Mm-hmm. And fortunately, it's one of the strengths that I bring to it. Is, like you were mentioning earlier, being able to put together a team, get people excited, and then go out and tell people why they should buy, whether it's a product or supporting a charity or whatever the project is.
For you, what would you find to be the most passionate component of this? Like, obviously, like you said, you're good on the sales side. Obviously making money is important. You're putting out cool artwork. You're working with people. What are you most passionate about? Like, what really, when you wake up in the morning, do you find to be most exciting to look forward to?
Sure. So there's several different aspects of it that I really enjoy. One of them is just the design aspect. I love to do graphic design for T-shirts or, putting together the design for the calendar, which I did have some help with, admittedly, but, we worked together on it. Another one is just meeting all the people that you do at conventions. It's you meet just such an interesting menagerie of people from all different walks of life and different places. And, I would have never expected to, just as an example, I've traveled to Germany for conventions. I've traveled to Canada, to the UK. Like, just getting to go and have those experiences is, it's really amazing to, go to essentially what I called it a vacation, quote unquote, to the UK. At the end of it, I did a convention and I came back with twice as much money as I started with. Like, that's great.
Yeah, that's pretty magical, I think.
Right.
So my final question for you here is, you've had a lot of success with this campaign. Looks like you're doing really well also with your business. You're also helping people with the charitable component. Would you have done anything differently with the launch? I mean, I know you obviously already had a stellar project, but would you have done anything differently?
That's a good question. I definitely would have used BackerKit from the beginning. I didn't know, like, for example, they offer an option for you to be able to pre-order things before the campaign even starts. And Indiegogo doesn't. So, like, you can't order it on Indiegogo until the actual launch of the thing. And so we were starting on day one and it was, $0. I was just like, oh dear, this could go badly. Whereas if I had done it with BackerKit, I mean, I had people messaging me and like, hey, I'd love to help you guys get started. I'd love to purchase it whenever I can. And, it's possible that they might have, forgotten about it or, anything like that. Whereas next time, our next campaign is going to be plushies, little cute.
I could see that working really well. Yeah,
absolutely.
Especially for your demo. Like,
oh yeah. Plushies are the little furry characters. It's going to be great. But, for this next campaign, we're setting it up where, we'll have the official launch date. But then even before that, they can go on BackerKit and they can purchase the pre-order, especially for people who, again, they just want to support the project. They want to help it get started. And then that way, you're not starting on day one with zero. You can a little bit gauge the you can gauge the interest a little bit before you actually start.
Mm-hmm. Okay, cool. Well said. Well, my final question for you: where can people go to learn a little bit more about your existing campaign and also some of the artwork that you got out there?
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely recommend that people go and follow our social media because that's where we post everything. So it's on Twitter. It's at ArtworkT. So ArtWorkTee. And that's the same as the website, artworkt.com. People can check that out as well.
Great. Thank you so much for coming on the show, sharing some great advice, and also sharing how I think you can incorporate, like I said, you can incorporate sort of a charitable mission into what you're doing, and you can also have a larger impact beyond just, making money or having a huge funding amount. You can also connect with a community of people, and even just by putting yourself out there and doing that in live ways, you never know what can come from that. So thank you so much for coming on today and sharing that message.
Absolutely. I really appreciate it. Happy to come on anytime you like.
Let me tell you about our latest sponsor, SendPro Online by Pitney Bowes. Shipping can be complex. Things can get really confusing really fast. With SendPro Online, it's easy to save time and money no matter what you send, from letters and packages to overnights and flats. You can easily compare USPS, UPS, and FedEx in an all-in-one online tool. You can print shipping labels and stamps directly from your printer. You can even track all of your shipments and get email notifications when they've arrived. SendPro Online is only $14.99 a month, and listeners can get a free 30-day trial when you visit pb.com/crowdcrux. That's pb.com/crowdcrux. Experience the convenience of SendPro Online for yourself when you sign up for a free 30-day trial. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Crowdfunding Demystified podcast. If you didn't catch it, my name is Salvador Briggman. Invite you, if this is your first time, go and listen to some of the other podcasts we got out there. Tons of incredible entrepreneurs and individuals who are just smashing their goal on Kickstarter, Indiegogo, and other crowdfunding websites. Also some really freaking creative people, man. It's insane. I think I'm so privileged to be able to talk with some of these exceptional creative artists, these musicians, these authors, these entrepreneurs, these engineers. Like, it's incredible, I think, that we get access to that with this show, and you're just kind of like a fly on the wall here listening to my conversation as we get into what actually pulled the levers in order to get more funding. What did they do behind the scenes in order to have a river of traffic flowing into their campaign? And I also learned a lot today, I think, when it comes to getting ambassadors to join your initiative and to join your cause and to get them raising money on your behalf. If you're interested in booking a one-on-one coaching call with me and you want to talk about your project, get into some feedback possibly for your video or your campaign, also the actual strategy you're going to use to raise money, things you're not doing so well, maybe some red flags that I see that you got to correct before you go live, the link to book a coaching call with me is crowdcrux.com/coaching. That is crowdcrux.com/coaching. You can use that link to book an hour-long intensive coaching call with me, and we can get everything squared away when it comes to the launch of your crowdfunding campaign. If that is not a good option for you, you can also check out my book, The Kickstarter Launch Formula, which is available on Audible. That link is crowdcrux.com/Kickstarter audio. Just go and grab a copy of The Kickstarter Launch Formula, a great way to get started. And also, so you don't have to be like jumping around listening to a bunch of different podcasts and stuff and kind of putting it all together. It's all there laid out for you, easy to download, easy to listen to wherever you are in the world. crowdcrux.com/Kickstarter audio. Thank you so much for joining me here, and I will see you next time.